So 5F is about parallel and perpendicular lines. And these first questions here are based on like an in-class activity. So that's why it says, what did we notice? So for the sake of the video here, I'm just going to tell you what it is. So for the slopes of parallel lines, if you remember, we have y equals mx plus b. The slope is the m. The slopes of parallel lines are exactly the same. Now perpendicular, they are opposite. But it's the opposite reciprocal is what we say. And I'll show you what that means. So first, opposite means that if the lines are perpendicular, one slope has to be positive, and then one would have to be negative. So opposite just means one's positive, one's negative. Now reciprocal means that the fraction is flipped. And that'll make more sense once we do a couple examples. So let's practice our parallel examples first. So if a parallel slope is exactly the same, if I'm given a slope of 5, the parallel slope is also 5. If I'm given negative 1/4, it is also negative 1/4, and so on. It just means they are exactly the same. Nothing changes. Now, perpendicular. So if I'm given a positive 3, I know that the perpendicular slope must be negative. So like here, if I'm given a negative slope, I know it has to be a positive number here, okay? So perpendicular, if you're given positive, then your answer will be negative, and the opposite for negative. Now the reciprocal part. So 3 as a fraction is technically 3 over 1. Now I want to flip this and make it 1 over 3, and then I want to make it negative. So this would be my answer. I know that's kind of confusing because you have to think of opposite and reciprocal. But let's try it again. So here, I'm given a negative slope, so I know my answer should be positive. And then instead of 2 over 3, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to make it 3 over 2. So that would be my answer. So our next one, we have another whole number. So whole numbers are always over 1. So here I have negative 6 over 1. So I know that my answer will be positive, but I want to flip the fraction. So instead I'll have positive 1 over 6. This one I have a positive fraction, so I know my answer should be negative. Again, we want to flip it. So it's going to be negative 7 over 6. And last we have 0. 0 is a special case one. The opposite of 0 is always undefined. And the opposite of undefined would always be 0. Okay, so now we're going to look at some examples, and we're going to determine, are these parallel, perpendicular, or neither, by just looking at the slopes. So here, my slope is negative 4/3, and then here it's negative 3/4. Well, right off the bat, they're both negative. So I know that they can't be perpendicular. But they're also not exactly the same, so they can't be parallel. So that means that they are neither. Next, I have negative 3/5 and 5/3. Well, they're not exactly the same, so they're not parallel. I do have one positive and one negative, so it could be perpendicular, but I need to double check. Are they flipped fractions? Here I have negative 3/5. Here I have positive 5 over 3. They are flipped fractions, and one's positive, one's negative. That makes them perpendicular. Okay, next I have a slope of negative 2 and a slope of negative 2. Well, these are exactly the same, so they are parallel. All right, next I have a slope of 2 and a slope of 1/2. Well, they are reciprocals of each other because technically 2 is 2 over 1, but they're both positive, which means it can't be perpendicular because that would have to have one positive, one negative. So this is neither. My last one has a slope of -5 and a slope of -5. Exactly the same, means parallel. Okay, next we have two graphs, and we need to determine if they are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So looking at the first one, it looks like they're parallel, but I just want to double check. So to check, I'm just going to go on here and look. I'm going to make some points, and I just want to see if they are actually parallel. So the slope of this one is up 1, 2, 3 over 2. And then I'll find some points on this one, 3 over 2. So they're both 3 over 2. So they are parallel. And they look parallel. So, okay. This one's kind of hard to tell. So I see a point here and here. So that would give me 2 over 1. Over here, it looks like it's just each time, which would give me 1 over 1. So this is neither. Okay, we have two more. They look kind of similar. Again, I just want to double check. Oh. Maybe. Okay, so I see a point here and here. So that would give me 3 and 1. And then I see a point here and here. So that would give me 1 over 3. And then one of these lines is positive. This one is positive. This is a negative line. So they are perpendicular. And then our last one is neither.